Thank you for tuning in to my second part of my three-part series on bone health. If you haven't seen the first part yet, I highly recommend it. It was all about calcium and how consuming more and more calcium, loads of calcium to try to compensate for loads of calcium coming off of our bone has been proven time and time again to not be effective. It's kind of like trying to pump more and more air into a bicycle tire that has a leak. It just doesn't work. So today we're going to talk about trying to patch that leak, how to slow down the calcium coming off of a bone. That's much more important, much more effective than trying to increase the amount of calcium going onto our bone. So let's talk about bone turnover. Bone turnover includes formation, which is when the osteoblasts in our bone pull calcium out of our blood and pack it onto our bone. That's usually going to occur if the calcium levels in our blood are too high, because our blood, there's a very, very tight range of the calcium level that we want in our blood. If it gets too high or too low, really bad things happen really quickly. So if the calcium levels get too high, we have bone formation. Conversely, when the calcium levels in our blood are too low, we have bone resorption. And this is when the osteoclasts in our bone take calcium off of our bone and put it into our blood. And trying to decrease bone resorption is much more effective than increasing bone formation. You would think that if you had a whole lot of bone resorption going on, that would be okay, as long as you also have a whole lot of bone formation going on to compensate. And you would think that would be the same thing as if you had just a little bit of bone resorption going on and just a little bit of bone formation going on. But it's not. Our skeleton much prefers that second scenario, where there's very little bone turnover. And you could see how much of each of these functions is going on, because when there's more bone formation, certain metabolites are formed, and we could check the blood for these metabolites. Likewise, when bone resorption is going on, certain metabolites are formed that we could check the blood for. So we could see how much of each of these are going on. And we could try to minimize this. How? By consuming more magnesium. Now, when I said calcium goes in and out of our bone to regulate the amount of calcium in our blood, that's true, but that's not the only reason why our bone might donate calcium into our blood. Also, the pH in our blood has to be maintained within a very tight range too. And when the blood gets too acidic, our bone donates calcium, because the calcium minerals from our bone help buffer that pH in our blood. And then what? Now all of a sudden, the blood calcium levels were just right, but we put in all this calcium to try to buffer the acid, so now we have all this extra calcium in our blood. So now we have to try to get rid of that calcium. A lot of it goes out to our kidneys, where it's wasted, plus it's more wear and tear on our kidneys. A lot of it's just accumulating on the blood vessels as plaque or calcifying our soft tissue. At best, some of it is going back into our bone, but then that's still increasing bone turnover, which is exactly what we're trying to decrease. So we could consume more magnesium and get the same exact results, because magnesium buffers the blood the same way the calcium from our bone does. Lots of studies show that magnesium helps decrease bone turnover, decrease bone resorption. Some studies show that even while it's decreasing bone resorption, it's actually increasing bone formation. So you get the best of both worlds there. Here's a study I really like. It was conducted on postmenopausal women. They were split up into two groups. The first group was treated with magnesium supplements for 24 months. It was a group of 31, and of that 31 subjects, 22 of them had an increase in trabecular bone density. That's amazing. 2/3 of them, postmenopausal women, are actually increasing in their trabecular bone density. Compare that to the controls. Only 1 out of 23 had an increase. 17 of the 23 had a decrease in trabecular bone density. Magnesium is the way to go. You don't see results like this with calcium. Think magnesium. The way that we get this magnesium is we want to consume whole grains and lots of fruits and vegetables. I'm a big advocate of the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the better off you are. For most people, that's going to be enough, is having a very well-rounded plant-based diet, or at least predominantly plant-based diet. This way you're getting all the nutrients you need, lots of magnesium, the calcium you need in the right amounts. So another thing that could really help with your bone health is soy, believe it or not. Now, we know that post-menopause, we have trouble keeping that calcium onto our bone. And we know the reason for that is because the estrogen's not present anymore. Estrogen really does help minimize bone resorption. Soy has the phytoestrogen, and that's been shown, and soy has been shown to enhance bone health. And I know a lot of people think, okay, well, soy has that estrogen that's going to increase the risk of cancer, especially of the estrogen-sensitive organs, namely prostate, uterus, breast, ovaries. But actually, the studies show that soy actually reduces the risk of cancer of those organs. So soy could actually be beneficial for your bone. Well-rounded, plant-based or primarily plant-based diet to make sure you're getting all the nutrients you need is the way to go. And then if you want a little extra and you're not allergic to soy, soy could be helpful too. That's all we have for you today. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Please hit that notification bell and tune in next time for part 3 of this 3-part series on bone health. See you then.